second meeting between Flávio Bolsonaro and Daniel Vorcaro. Flávio Bolsonaro remains silent about a new lie in his relationship with Vorcaro and could be the target of legal action in Brazil's Supreme Court. Journalist Lauro Jardim wrote a story and said that, according to his sources, he has proof that Flávio met and went to Daniel Vorcaro's house for a meeting. And it's funny, where is Flávio? To say, no, that's a lie. Lauro Jardim is lying, that's a lie. Look, silent and quiet. Flávio didn't say anything. Why? Because he knows it's true. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't believe it's just a meeting either. No. I believe that other meetings will be discovered. Why? Because the way Flávio spoke with Daniel Vorcaro is the way someone would who already had a closer relationship. First, because he was demanding money. He wasn't asking, he was demanding money from Daniel Vorcaro. Second, he said several times, my brother, my dear brother, we're in this together. So for me, there was already a closer relationship, especially if we look a few years back, notably during Bolsonaro's administration. It was during Bolsonaro's government that Banco Master became Banco Master. Yes, it was with the president of the central bank, Campos Neto. It was during Bolsonaro's government that Banco Master achieved and received authorization to make benefit deductions for retirees and pensioners. And all those situations, the payroll loans, the BPC, the LOAs, the Bolsa Familia, right? So all of that Banco Master achieved during Bolsonaro's government to have a favorable environment and access to the necessary authorizations so they could do what they did. And it was all the INSS fraud, all the illicit deductions, and at the same time, the situation with Banco Master itself. It happened during Bolsonaro's government. And we can never forget this fact, which is very interesting and at the same time revealing. Who was the biggest donor to Bolsonaro's campaign in 2022? In other words, who was the one most interested in seeing Bolsonaro re-elected? The Daniel Vorcaro Mafia. Why do I say this and affirm it? Because Fabiano Zettel, Daniel Vorcaro's brother-in-law, the main financial agent of the mafia, according to the federal police, of the Daniel Vorcaro Mafia, Fabiano Zettel, his brother-in-law, who is also in prison. He was the biggest donor. As an individual, he took 3 million reais from his personal account and donated it to Bolsonaro's campaign in 2022. What was Grupo Master's interest in being the biggest donor to Bolsonaro's campaign? The interest was that he would be re-elected. And why? Because they knew that if Bolsonaro were re-elected, all of this that's coming to light now wouldn't have come out. All of this would have remained hidden. All this fraud would have continued. Why? Because the Bolsonaro family was benefiting from it. Or is 3 million nothing to you? Or the 134 million that Flávio was charging is nothing to you? That's a lot of money. And that's just what we know about. Because my grandmother always used to say to me, my daughter, when you know just a little, stop and think. Imagine what is hidden. If you discover just a little, you can stop and prepare yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally. Why? Because the blow is much bigger, just like betrayal. When you find out about a betrayal, my dear, things are already really bad. Things are already, it might even already be over. Do you understand? It's the same thing here. When we discover a little bit of corruption, it's just a little bit. Consider all that remains undiscovered and unrevealed. And Flávio didn't answer. And he didn't defend himself. Why? Because he knows it's true. And he knows that there's very likely proof of it, video, audio, and that soon it's going to come out and everyone will find out. That's why he's staying quiet. Then when he speaks, he comes and says, but it's private money, money is stolen. Whose authorizations were given? That's why I have a certain suspicion that the Bolsonaro family was kind of a partner of Daniel Vorcar, because everything was possible thanks to the Bolsonaro administration, including not having this if it weren't for Lula had won the election. And for them, Lula wouldn't have won, so much so that they donated 3 million to Bolsonaro's campaign. If Lula hadn't won, this fraud would very likely have continued for longer during Bolsonaro's re-election. That's why I think the Bolsonaro family is connected to Daniel Alborcaro. But Andrea, the money went to the movie. Where is the movie's financial report? No, if you tell me you received money, that's fine. And this money is suspected of being stolen, and that's fine. You just have to prove it. Where did the money go? There are transfers, there's Doc, there's Ted, there's Pix, all of which have banking and financial traceability. Mario Frias, after The Intercept, revealed the audio in which Flávio was demanding more than 60 million reais from Daniel Alborcaro. When this audio came out, Mario Frias, federal deputy and former Minister of Culture under Bolsonaro, said he would give an account of the film. In a week, we will give an account. The 15th marked a month now, and no one has given an account. So the civil police, which you know is investigating, especially Karina Gama, about a contract she has or had with the city hall. There's one from São Paulo worth 108 million, which we found out about, that had 3 contributions and ended up going to almost 160 million. The São Paulo civil police are investigating this relationship with the São Paulo City Hall. And what is the suspicion? Money laundering. She won the bidding process without having the technical expertise to provide the service. No one wins a bid like that unless there's some kind of scheme going on. Then they were told to account for the money, right? And they said the suspicion is that part of this money went to the movie. How much money is that for the movie? Because she is the sole owner of the production company Go Gope, which produced Bolsonaro's movie. And this legal entity was created and established just to make the movie because she had never made any movie before. Then they presented the accounting documents. The civil police said, no, these are not accounting records. No, this here is nonsense. We want the accounting records. Where are they? Then do you know what she told the civil police? It's all confidential. What do you mean confidential? You can even make contracts that have a confidentiality clause. Can you? Yes, you can, Andrea. But between the parties, for commercial reasons, with the police and with the justice system, that doesn't exist. Did you understand? And it's not. It's all confidential. Confidential for the police since there's a police investigation. My handsome and my beautiful, it's all about corruption, crime, money laundering, paying bribes, where they dove right into Daniel Vorcar's mafia, where Flávio doesn't explain anything. So the question that remains is, where are the police on Flávio Bolsonaro's tail? Maybe they're not, Andre. Everything's confidential, so maybe they are. Have the police already requested to lift Flávio Bolsonaro's confidentiality? Because The Intercept revealed 78 million in transfers. For what? The movie. That went to an account. Funds to Ravengate, which Paulo Carlisto, Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer, received in Texas. Where did this money go? Flávio's bank secrecy needs to be lifted. There needs to be accountability, search and seizure. Did the federal police already request that? If the federal police requested it, did Andre Mendonça approve? Or has the federal police not asked yet? What's the situation? The people want to know. Do you know why I'm explaining all this to you? because it gives the impression that Andre Mendonça is protecting Flávio Bolsonaro. Could it be that Andre Mendonça is protecting Flávio Bolsonaro? Or could it be that the federal police haven't requested it yet? Did the federal police request it and Andre Mendonça refuse? Or did Andre Mendonça ask the federal police to investigate further, saying he needed more information about Flávio and that movie to make a decision? What's happening? And what about the Attorney General? Where's the Attorney General to? Can the Attorney General also request search and seizure, breaking confidentiality, arrest, and so on? Where's the Attorney General to? Because I have to tell you, Andre Mendonça himself, he's static. As a rule, the judge, he's passive. Right, Andre? Right. As a rule, he has to be prompted, activated. By whom? By the federal police, by the Attorney General of the Republic. Look, we need to break Flávio's confidentiality. We need to search and seize Flávio's belongings. We need this and that and that. Now, I heard that the problem is that there won't be any cooperation from the United States because a request was made to break the confidentiality of the Havergate Fund, to find out the money that went in there and where it went. The thing is, what we have today, a nobody, a scammer who wants to be the emperor of the world and ends up involved in influence peddling. Everywhere in the United States, also over there, they're not hired through public exams like in Brazil, judges and such. The police chiefs aren't hired through exams. It's political. They're appointed. They've already requested this, so will the United States send the information to the Supreme Court? I don't believe they will. That's going to be very difficult. So what do we have to work with, Andrea, with what we have here? With what we can do here within our jurisdiction and our sovereignty? Because if Andre Mendonça is going to wait for confidential information from some kind of breach from the United States to make decisions, it's going to be very difficult. He has to act with what he has here to ensure proper accountability. Or do you think it wasn't all premeditated? It was all premeditated, my dear. The fact that they took this money to the United States to an account in Texas, a fund in Texas belonging to Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer. Today, Eduardo Bolsonaro actually lives in Texas. All of this was premeditated. It was to make it harder to access the information and to trace the path of the money. Otherwise, they would have left it here. The movie was produced here in Brazil, Andre. The movie was produced abroad. It wasn't. The movie was produced here in Brazil. It had the main actor, Kim Kajib, who is American, and some parts of the American production with people who work in the United States. But the movie was produced here in Brazil. Why did they send the money abroad? If the money was for the movie, it's exactly to make the crime trail harder to follow. Inter criminis, which is the money trail. I've always told you back then, before we knew all of this, I told you you have to follow the money that's funding Eduardo Bolsonaro in the United States. Oh, Andre, Bolsonaro gave him 2 million. Did he really give it? But that's fine. Let's suppose that Bolsonaro did give him 2 million, like Bolsonaro says. 2 million in the United States becomes $400,000. $400,000 is enough to pay for a year and a half of the house where Eduardo lives. It's not enough for anything. Eduardo Bolsonaro is living a wealthy lifestyle in a mansion in the United States where living is very expensive. He said he doesn't own the house he lives in. It's rented and he pays $30,000 in rent. How much is that per month? It's almost 400,000. In a year, it's almost 400,000, which is the 2 million that Bolsonaro gave him. Where does the rest of the money come from, guys? From all the other situations? Here is the source of the mafia. From the partnership between the Bolsonaro family and Daniel Vorcaro. They set up the whole movie, and that's my opinion. The federal police will obviously have to gather the evidence. To me, from what everything indicates, it was a partnership where they made up the movie to launder money and send money abroad. to try to make tracking the crime more difficult. And I ask you, where is the federal police? Where's the Attorney General's office? Where is Andre Mendonça? And where is Flávio to explain? Flávio, explain. He doesn't explain anything, especially Flávio. Even the journalists, right? Even those on the right want to know. This journalist here from Estadão and also from Globo News, Eliana Pontenheda, she posted this here and got a response from Flávio. Look at what she said here. Look. Master case, isn't someone missing from the federal police and Supreme Court searches? And what about Senator Flávio Bolsonaro from the PL party? That's the question that won't go away. And it raises more doubts and interpretations than unquestionable technical and legal answers. Since the case is under Brazilian-style secrecy, it's not even known whether the federal police has already requested a search against Flávio or not, and whether this request has been reviewed by Andre Mendonça or not. In any case, the old saying still holds true. Why? Why? That Flávio still hasn't been taken to court. Flávio, he was demanding millions from Daniel Vorcaro. He wasn't asking, he was demanding. And the millions were stolen money because within Vorcaro's mafia, there was no legal money. Everything was stolen money. Then Flávio came and answered the reporter here. Look at what he said here. I'll make it bigger. Flávio answered. That private investment made in a private film without any public counterpart is just as legitimate as investment made in advertising in Estadão. There is absolutely nothing wrong. Well, if Daniel Vorcaro did advertising in Estadão and there is suspicion of a crime, then Estadão also has to be subject to search, seizure, and breach of confidentiality. And that's all right. Now, a senator of the Republic is a public figure. A senator who wants to be president of the Republic is a public figure. There is nothing private, not even his money is private. Get that into your head. When you run for office, you have to be accountable and declare all your assets to the Electoral Court. Because it's no longer private, it's public. So there's nothing private about it. Besides, Vorcaro's money is stolen money. And he'll have to be held accountable. And I ask you, where is Flávio Bolsonaro to explain? He doesn't explain anything. He keeps blaming the PT again. Because of the searches and seizures involving Jax Wagner, there has to be, I told you, there has to be. Is there suspicion? There has to be. And everything is fine. The police are investigating. We will get to the bonuses. Criminals, whoever they are, should go to jail. But where is Flávio in this story? You? Scara, did I choose the stranger? Was I there? Hasn't the federal police started investigating yet? Or do you think Andre Mendonça is shielding Flávio? What's your opinion? Shielding. Or is Andre Mendonça waiting for the federal police to arrive with the report? More robust to do what needs to be done? I'm going to read his answer and I'll give you my opinion, but I want you to share your opinion too. Then Flávio said and continued, by your reasoning, there should be search and seizure against the owners of Estadão, which I don't agree with. If there needs to be a search and seizure, then there needs to be one. It doesn't matter whose it is. However, nevertheless, Lula, who's from Bahia, is accused of corruption. In other words, no matter how much you root against me, the only possibility of a crime is in the relationship between the government leader, Lula's loyal sidekick, and Augusto Lima and Master, and not in the case of the movie. That's the thing. The movie case is blatant. And in my opinion, I'll tell you what I think about this. The movie case is blatant. I showed you details about the federal police operation and about what they had on Jax Wagner, and I told you there really had to be an operation. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to, guys. Now, in this case with Flávio Bolsonaro, it's much more blatant. And if there isn't, pay attention. If there isn't measures, if there are no police and judicial investigations regarding this situation in the movie, regarding Flávio Bolsonaro, by the end of this month, it's shielding. Thank you. Andre Mendonça, from what it seems, will be trying to shield Flávio Bolsonaro. Thank you. Why do I say that? Because there's no way. Thank you. There's no way you can tell me that movie Pangaré, by Pangaré, the Pangaré cost, for example, 78 million reais. There's no way. It didn't cost that. The main actor who plays Bolsonaro is so ridiculous that he wears a wig that's so badly put on, it's almost cartoonish. It even makes it seem like the movie is a comedy. There's no way. And why haven't they accounted for it until now? If everything is legit, let's suppose it really went to the movie. Where are the receipts? Where are the invoices? Where are the transfer confirmations? Do you understand, my dear? And Flávio asking for money. Then, at the same time as all this, the largest shipment was on February 13, 2025. It was $2 million, which when converted to reais is over 10 million reais. It was in February 2025. At the same time as this transfer to Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyers fund, Eduardo Bolsonaro leaves Brazil, and at the beginning of March, end of February, beginning of March, he arrives in the United States and never comes back. He abandons his position as a member of Congress. My impression is that Flávio stayed to collect and Eduardo went to receive the money. Why? Successively. Starting from February of last year, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, at least 5 million reais were transferred every month to the account of Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer. And Eduardo Bolsonaro leaves his position as a federal deputy with a salary of almost 50,000 reais to go hungry in the United States, to live in a room and sleep on an air mattress like he showed in the video and posted on his social media. Yeah, I'm living here sleeping on this air mattress. That's what he wanted to make you and me believe. But under the table, all at once, on February 13th, it was 10 million reais. And coincidentally, it went to his lawyer, Eduardo Bolsonaro. So now you'll say this is all just coincidence. My dear, where is the federal police? Where are Andre Mendonça and the Attorney General on this? Oh, Andrea, but Flávio Bolsonaro is president. He's a presidential candidate. It doesn't matter. That's even more reason for the police to act, for the prosecutor general to go after him. Or are they going to let that criminal get away with it? Really run for president of the republic? But that's not the worst part. That's still not the worst part. What a thing. What madness, guys. The worst part is that they can still use all of this to try to bring down Lula. Look, a new Lava Jato and made the criminal president of the republic. Really, Andrea, I don't doubt anything. My grandmother always told me, be careful, my daughter, the cycles repeat themselves. As long as you don't break the cycle will repeat itself. And the story will be the same at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. Then you ask me, Andrea, do you believe the Lava Jato cycle will repeat itself? No, it won't. Not because all the structures involved in Lava Jato have improved in their banditry or in their character. No, that's not it. Not because they saw the tragedy, which is having Bolsonaro as president. The cycle would repeat itself, in my opinion, if the right had managed to get their candidate elected. But Bolsonaro didn't allow it. And Bolsonaro once again forced it down their throats, a pure blood Bolsonaro, as they themselves said, to be the president. And this whole structure, you know what a catastrophe it is. There's Bolsonaro leading the presidency of the Republic, where everyone went back to the sea to starve, where the middle class fell, the rich suffered losses. The only ones who made a profit were people like Daniel Vorcaro, like Luciano Hang. Who are the billionaires in Brazil? They were the only group during Bolsonaro's government who got richer and grew. The other segments of society, the rich, the middle class, and the poor, kept declining. That's why I don't believe in this cycle anymore. There will be reactions. They won't want Flávio, especially because as everything that needs to be exposed gradually comes to light. Who does Flávio Bolsonaro belong to? Everyone knows who Flávio Bolsonaro is in Rio de Janeiro and in Brasilia too. Wherever there is Flávio, there is a scheme. So I don't believe it. I even believe that Andre Mendonça is in a way trying to shield Flávio. But he won't be able to hold on for very long. He won't put himself on the line because of Flávio. There will be pressure from the federal police and the prosecutor general's office. And when that happens, he'll give up. Because otherwise he'll put himself at risk. But right now, in a way, he is trying, but he will not be able to keep it up. Especially because this movement, for example, from Estadão, which I just showed you here, Andre's comment from the journalist, Globo's move, which featured Lauro Jardim making this revelation from Globo News, which is also being very tough. They won't accept it anymore. I repeat, not because there's any spotless character in this story or some high moral ground. No. It's because of the damage that Bolsonaro caused to these economic groups and of great power. Since we're talking about media, about the press, they won't accept it. Now, if it was someone like Tarcísio, we would be facing a new Lava Jato. Since Bolsonaro imposed Flávio, it's hard to accept Flávio. He's corrupt. He's a criminal. And all his connections are only with criminals, apparently. From all indications,